There are three things sitting in every grocery store right now that your great-grandmother would not recognize as food. She made her own version of all three. It cost her almost nothing. It kept her family stronger, leaner, and healthier than the average American alive today. And when she made them herself, no corporation got paid. That is exactly why you were never taught how. The global packaged food industry generates over $3 trillion every single year. $3 trillion built entirely on one belief they needed you to hold permanently: that real food comes in a package, from a factory with a price tag attached. It does not. Today, I am going to show you three things I permanently stopped purchasing from any grocery store. Not because I am poor, not because I am extreme. Because once you understand what these three things actually are and what the industry replaced them with, you will never hand that money over again either. A loaf of real bread, a bag of real salt, a jar of real fat. The grocery store sells you a substitute for each one. A factory imitation that costs more, does less, and quietly degrades your health every single time you consume it. The originals are still available, they always were. And they cost almost nothing to make yourself. This is the vault they never wanted opened. Welcome to lost skills. This is where the knowledge they buried comes back to light. If these stories matter to you, subscribe now and ring the bell. We open a new vault every single week. In 1909, a woman named Clara Eisner baked bread every Thursday morning in a farmhouse outside of Lancaster, Pennsylvania. She used two ingredients: flour and water. No commercial yeast purchased from any store. No packets, no jars, no preservatives. She captured the wild yeast already floating freely in her own kitchen air, fed it with flour and water across 3 days, and it came alive. It rose. It doubled. It filled the house with a smell that her grandchildren described decades later as the smell of something truly alive. That starter culture she maintained had been in her family for over 40 years, passed from her mother, before that, from her grandmother. A living thing, fed and kept like a garden. That bread took 72 hours from start to finish. Modern sandwich bread takes 45 minutes in a factory. That time difference is not efficiency. It is the removal of everything that made the original food worth eating. Here is what happens during those 72 hours that the factory skips entirely. Wild yeast fermentation breaks down phytic acid. Phytic acid is the compound found naturally in wheat that binds to minerals like zinc, magnesium, and iron inside your digestive system and prevents you from absorbing them at all. You eat the mineral. The phytic acid grabs it before your body can use it, and it passes straight through. A 2010 study published in the Journal of Cereal Science confirmed that long-fermentation sourdough reduces phytic acid content by up to 90%. 90%. The minerals that were always present in the wheat become available to your body only after that slow living process completes. Commercial bread skips the fermentation entirely. Rapid rise industrial yeast inflates the dough in under 2 hours through carbon dioxide pressure, not biological activity. The phytic acid stays fully intact. The mineral absorption stays blocked. And you pay $3 to $5 for a loaf of bread that, from a nutritional standpoint, delivers a fraction of what Clara Eisner handed her children for pennies. The global bread market generates over $220 billion a year. You cannot patent wild yeast. It is literally floating in the air above your kitchen counter right now. You cannot trademark fermentation. It is a biological process that has been occurring naturally for 10,000 years of human baking history. You cannot sell a subscription to flour and water, so the industry did not eliminate sourdough. They could not. They simply stopped teaching it, stopped including it in cookbooks, stopped showing it in commercials, and replaced it one grocery store shelf at a time with an industrial product that required a factory, a supply chain, and a weekly purchase. Here is what you do. Take a clean glass jar. Add 50 grams of whole wheat flour and 50 grams of room temperature water. Stir until no dry flour remains. Leave it uncovered or loosely covered on your kitchen counter. 24 hours later, discard half and feed it again with the same amounts. Do this every day for 5 to 7 days. By day 4, you will see bubbles. By day 6, you will see it double in size within hours of feeding. That is wild yeast. That is alive. That is everything the factory removed. Your first loaf will cost you approximately 40 cents in flour. It will take 20 minutes of active work spread across 24 hours, and it will taste like something that your great-grandmother would recognize immediately as real. Stay with me. Because the second thing I stopped buying is something every nutritionist in America tells you to use less of. And they are completely, demonstrably wrong about it. Not because of opinion, because of chemistry. For 5,000 years, salt was more valuable than gold in large parts of the ancient world. Roman soldiers were paid in it. The word salary derives directly from the Latin word salarium, meaning salt payment. Entire trade routes were built around it. Wars were fought over it. Civilizations rose and collapsed based on access to it. Not because salt is inherently dangerous, because salt, real salt, unprocessed salt, contains something irreplaceable to human biology. The Dead Sea contains over 84 distinct trace minerals in its natural crystalline structure. Pink Himalayan rock salt contains 64. Celtic gray sea salt, harvested by traditional methods, contains over 80. Magnesium, potassium, calcium, iodine in natural form, silica, iron, chromium, trace elements that every cell in your body uses daily in quantities so small they were once impossible to measure, but never impossible to need. The salt sitting in the cardboard cylinder on the grocery store shelf contains exactly one mineral. Sodium chloride, stripped of everything else through industrial refining, reprocessed at temperatures exceeding 1200 degrees Fahrenheit, then combined with anti-caking agents including calcium silicate and sodium ferrocyanide to keep it flowing freely. Then iodine is added back artificially because the refining process removed it along with everything else. A 2020 review published in the International Journal of Environmental Research and Public Health identified consistent associations between ultra-processed sodium consumption and elevated cardiovascular risk markers. The same review noted that traditional mineral-rich salt sources did not produce the same associations in the population studied. The global processed salt industry generates over $15 billion annually. You cannot own a mineral deposit in someone else's mountain. You cannot patent ancient sea salt harvesting methods, but you can refine a natural substance into a single compound powder, strip out everything that once made it genuinely valuable, sell it back to people for $1 a cylinder, and simultaneously fund decades of research and dietary guidelines that frame salt itself as the danger rather than what the refining process removed. That framing was worth billions. Low-sodium product lines, salt substitutes, specialty health salts sold at $20 a bag. All of it downstream from one original act, taking something complete and making it empty, then profiting from everything that followed. The replacement costs nothing complicated. Celtic gray sea salt, real pink Himalayan rock salt, unrefined sun-dried sea salt harvested by traditional methods. None of these require a factory. None require refining. All of them cost between $2 and $4 per pound from any bulk food supplier or international grocery. That is the salt your body was always designed to use, not the processed version engineered to pour cleanly from a cardboard tube. Everything you have heard so far is barely touching the surface of what has been documented and buried. I have spent months compiling every real study, every historical record, and every practical method the food industry removed from public knowledge. All of it is inside the complete lost skills vault. Traditional food preservation methods that keep food safe for years without refrigeration. Fermentation techniques used by every major civilization before modern processing arrived. Fat rendering methods that your great-grandmother used and that no grocery store will ever sell you. Natural mineral and nutrition sources that cost almost nothing. Over 10 complete guides in one place with nothing but actionable information. The link is in the description below. But stay right here. The third thing I stopped buying is the one the food industry is most afraid of, because it costs them the most when you stop. In 1911, Procter & Gamble introduced a new product to the American kitchen. They called it Crisco. It was a partially hydrogenated cottonseed oil, a byproduct of the cotton industry that had previously been used primarily to make candles and soap. Through a process called hydrogenation, hydrogen atoms were forced into the unsaturated fat molecules under high pressure and temperature, transforming liquid industrial oil into a white solid that resembled lard. They marketed it as cleaner, healthier, and more modern than the animal fats American families had been cooking with for centuries. They distributed free cookbooks to churches, hospitals, and home economics teachers across the country. The cookbooks contained recipes designed specifically around Crisco and included explicit instructions for replacing lard and butter with the new product. Within a decade, hydrogenated vegetable shortening had displaced traditional animal fat from millions of American kitchens. That displacement was not based on science. The long-term health research did not exist yet. It was based on marketing. On the simple fact that cottonseed oil was an abundant industrial waste product that could be manufactured at scale and sold for profit, while beef tallow cost almost nothing because it was a byproduct every butcher threw away. The science that arrived decades later was not kind to that decision. A landmark study published in the New England Journal of Medicine in 1997 confirmed that trans fatty acids, the specific type created by partial hydrogenation, significantly elevated LDL cholesterol while simultaneously lowering HDL cholesterol. The combination is uniquely damaging to cardiovascular health. The study calculated that trans fat consumption was responsible for over 30,000 premature deaths in the United States annually. The FDA did not ban partially hydrogenated oils until 2015. Over 100 years after Procter & Gamble introduced them as the healthy modern replacement for the animal fat, your grandmother had been safely cooking with her entire life. Meanwhile, beef tallow, the fat that was quietly discarded, has a specific biochemical profile that researchers have been examining with renewed interest. It is composed primarily of oleic acid, the same monounsaturated fat found in olive oil, combined with palmitic acid and stearic acid, saturated fats that your liver converts to oleic acid during digestion. It contains naturally occurring fat-soluble vitamins A, D, E, and K in bioavailable form. It has a smoke point of approximately 420 degrees Fahrenheit, higher than most cooking oils, meaning it does not oxidize and degrade at normal cooking temperatures the way polyunsaturated vegetable oils do. A 2021 analysis, published in Frontiers in Nutrition, reviewed historical and contemporary data on animal fat consumption and concluded that the evidence for traditional animal fats contributing to cardiovascular disease was substantially weaker than the consensus dietary guidelines had reflected for decades. Beef tallow costs nothing if you know where to find it. Ask any butcher for beef fat trimmings. Most give them away or charge pennies per pound because the industrial food system has spent 100 years telling people it has no value. Cut the fat into small pieces. Place it in a heavy pot over the lowest heat setting. Let it melt slowly over 2 to 3 hours, stirring occasionally. The fat will render into clear golden liquid. Strain it through cheesecloth into a glass jar. As it cools to room temperature, It will solidify into a white, shelf-stable cooking fat that keeps for months without refrigeration. 1 pound of beef fat trimmings costs under $1 from most butchers. It renders into approximately 12 ounces of pure cooking fat. A comparable volume of commercial cooking oil costs $2 to $4 and contains none of the nutritional profile that the animal fat carries naturally. The global edible oils market generates over $200 billion every single year. You cannot patent tallow. You cannot trademark the process of rendering fat that has been done in every kitchen on Earth for 10,000 years. You cannot build a subscription model around something every butcher gives away for free. So the industry did not need to ban it. They simply needed you to believe it was dangerous. And for over a century, that belief was worth billions. 3 things. Bread made from captured wild yeast. Salt that still contains what the earth put into it. Fat that your great-grandmother rendered in a pot on a wood stove and kept in a jar on the shelf for months without refrigeration. None of them require a factory. None of them require a supply chain. None of them require you to hand money to an industry that stripped out everything valuable before selling the empty shell back to you at a premium. Your great-grandmother did not buy any of these things from a store, not because she could not afford them, because she understood something the industry spent 100 years and hundreds of billions of dollars making you forget. That real food does not come from a package. It comes from knowledge. Knowledge that was always yours. A homesteader in Vermont documented switching all 3 of these in her household over the course of a single month. Her monthly grocery bill dropped by $63. Her family stopped buying antacids after switching to sourdough bread because the fermentation made the wheat fully digestible for the first time. Her husband, who had reduced his salt intake for years on doctor's advice, restored unrefined mineral salt to his diet and reported the muscle cramping that had bothered him for years disappearing within 3 weeks. These are not miracles. They are not alternative medicine. They are the baseline that existed before the industrial food system decided that what you eat should be something you purchase on a subscription basis forever. I need to be honest about one thing. Making these 3 things yourself requires time. The bread takes planning. The fat requires an afternoon. The salt switch is the simplest of all, but finding a quality source takes one search. None of it is instant. None of it is as frictionless as pulling a package off a shelf. But that friction is the exact reason the industry won for a century. They did not make their products better. They made the alternative feel inconvenient. And they charged you every month for that convenience for the rest of your life. The knowledge to stop paying that has always been available. It has been waiting in old cookbooks, in the hands of grandmothers who never stopped baking, in the journals of researchers whose findings never made it into dietary guidelines funded by the industry they were studying. What is one thing you stopped buying from the grocery store? Tell me in the comments below. Every answer this community shares is one more piece of the vault that gets opened. If this video reached you, subscribe and share it forward. Every share preserves what they spent billions trying to bury. The next vault opens soon. What is inside is even heavier than this one.